Okay, so we might as well get started. Today's session is being recorded as with our other sessions. So thank you all for joining Jamal and I today. We're going to take you for a walk through the contract module as well as new EMHware payments that are available on the platform. So I'm going to be kicking off today with our contract module. So without further ado, close this out. And I've already set up a few examples that we're going to take a walk through today with the contract module to save on time and watching me painstakingly set up every type of example for this for you. I've done it in advance so we can see how they look. There are so many different situations that we can accommodate with the contract module. So I've taken it upon myself to identify the main areas that it's used for. But just know as well as if you feel it is something that you want to explore for your organization, we can always have a more thorough discussion on a one-on-one call and really get down to what your needs are and any specific use cases. Also, for me to demonstrate, there are 3 levels of the contract module today, varying in degrees of complexity. So I've had to turn all of them on today for the demonstration, but just note that a number of the fields aren't used for the lower levels, but they will be present on the screen in demonstration today, but they would be disabled if they weren't features that you were going to use, so that all the extra pieces wouldn't be there. So to get started, I've set up a program in my program manager called Contract Program Example. And then in the program manager, there's just a little checkbox that says that this is a contract module program, which determines whether or not the contract fields will show up on the program history. Initially, all of the programs or the contracts are set up on the program history page. So for this first one, you'll see I've named my clients appropriately as well. So this is a fee-only client. So this, for instance, could be a client that comes in for a number of sessions, but the fee is for the entire programming. A common example for this would be the PAR program. So the client is set based on a sliding scale for how much they're going to pay to participate in the 12 sessions total of the group. So I've set up my program history for my client, and then below my receiving services section is where the contract module page lives. So in here, we have a number of different things. We have a contract ID. I've generated the setup right now in EMHware to automatically assign a contract ID, but this is something that we can leave open so you can set your own contract IDs in here. We can also display contract information to the client portal. So here is my contract number. If I have an approval number, I can add that here. If I have a specific contract source, then I can select from my agency address book. Or if my client is the one funding the contract, I can check off this box. I've got the start date of my contract, and this is going to populate as the receiving services date, but it can be changed if needed. You can also set an expiration date for your contract and have it reset and renew this contract at the end of the fiscal year automatically for you. And then going a little further down. So this situation, we've just set up this client to be paying by fee only. So here I've just said that the contract rate unit is fee, and I haven't set any of the other fields below. So this client is just going to be charged by the fee. So how I do that is I go, once I've saved this, I go into their contract tab, and in here, I'll see a listing of all of their active contracts. So for every program history, they can have a different contract source, totally different contract setup. And here I can see a number of pieces of information, but for this person, I've gone down to the end here, and I've created a charge by clicking on this $sign here. And I said, this client owes $450. So that's how much they have to pay us for the services received by this program. And depending on your agreement with the client, maybe they have to pay it all up front before they can begin, or maybe they pay it over time. Every time the client makes a payment, you can click on this $sign here, and it's going to tell us the date, the worker, how we're taking the payment, and the amount. So if I say the client is going to pay $100 today, My total balance is going to update and change. So they paid 100. They're now left owing $350. And when I refresh this screen and scroll over, their new balance is here. And when we go into the client transactions, in the contract menu, we'll be able to see the initial charge. I selected the wrong payment type when I put the charge in. That was my fault as I was setting it up. But we charged them $450 and they paid 100. So every time that there is a payment or a charge made, that is going to be recorded in here. And some of these pieces will tie in with Jamal's piece after around the taking of payments.
And Amanda, we do have a question here from Jay. Do you want to take questions now or towards the end?
So can multiple contracts be assigned for a single program? So on a single program history, you can only have one overall contract, but you can set it up so you can take different methods of charging. So you can charge them hourly, for instance, for certain activities, by the session for others, have a fee as well as charging them per session. So you can have a multitude of different charging options within one contract, but only one contract per program history active at one time. So the next example I'm going to take a walk through is this client has to pay hourly. So another simple setup for this one, we've got their program history set. And in here, I've set that their contract rate unit is hourly, as well as their contract base rate set to $50. Marion, so can you only use one funder per contract per program history? On my last example, I'm going to be showing a more thorough usage of the contract module, so you can actually set up multiple service providers and payees for a contract, but there can only be one funding source for the contract. So you can, have other services that are going to feed in with different rates and wages along with your staff, but only one single funding source. But again, there could be ways that we can discuss getting a little more information about your programming in a separate meeting where we can see what opportunities we have. Because based on the fields, yes, you can only have one, but we can always look at it from a different side of the coin. So we've got this person set to hourly and we've said that they're going to be $50 an hour. And again, those are the only pieces that I completed. So this person is going to be charged hourly, and in their contacts, here is a contact that I created earlier this morning. And I put it under my program after their contract start date. And here we can see as I selected my activities, it started counting. So when I scroll down here, I set assessment for 3 hours, and then we had set it that they're $50 an hour regardless. So then it's invoiced or charged this client $150 based on me completing the contact. So at this point, I could pull up an invoice here and print it and share it with the client. Also, I can do a transaction right in this page. So if they've got $150 cash, if the worker's the one taking the money, I can do that transaction right here on the contact page. But also when I go into their contract tab, I can see that they have a balance of $150 and I can take that payment from this screen as well. But one of the big things about having that visual on the contact screen is even if the worker is not the one that's taking the payment, you plug it in and you can say, this is going to cost you X amount of dollars and it's going to do all of that addition for you. And a very similar setup for this is if we're charging by session. So the setup would be identical, except instead of saying that this contract is going to be hourly at $50, I would say that it's by session. So that one contact where I said it was 3 hours, it would only be $50 because it was $50 for the entire session. The next scenario that I have prepared is when they're hourly, but they have a budget. So again, this person set up to pay by the hour, $50 an hour. But in the budget field, I've identified that they have a budget of $500. So whether that's from a funding source, whether we have them prepay for X amount of services, and they have that bucket of money that we're going to withdraw from when they have their services. So this person has a budget of $500. So when we do that contact, same idea, I set it to 3 hours and they're hourly. So the total charge was $150, but also on here, we can alert the client and let them know, their charge was $150. They have this much remaining to use after this session. So $350. And when we go and we look at that contract tab, oops, just gonna scroll over, maybe move all of my screens with me. So we can see all their budget. Now it hasn't committed to my budget balance yet because I didn't authenticate the contact as it's complete and signed. But as soon as that's done, then it would show that they now have $350 remaining in their budget. And Jen has asked, is it possible to indicate on the contract which activity types will trigger a charge because not all interactions with a client will result in a charge? That is a great question. And that brings us to our fourth scenario, which is charging by activity rate. So that would be this one here. So on the administration level, so most of your roles who are attending right now, there is a global contracts. I'm going to use one of our older tabs here that we've gone through, administration tab. So you've got different ways that you can set up across the organization, which activities can be used and charged in contracts, what their default pay rates are going to be, and which programs those activities can be used for. So you can set those up first in the time scales and activities, so which ones can be used, and then the contract activities where you can set those up a little bit deeper. And in here, you can also create all of your own expense types, all of these drop downs that are available through the contract module. I'm not clicking on them much because there's a lot of nonsense in my demo site drop downs as people have been playing around with things. So it's not as helpful to see on this site here. But you have the ability, you can set your different budget adjustment types, your expense types and reasons, your transactions, if you want to separate out credit, debit, cash, check, all of those things when you're taking or charging money. But then also the contract defaults as well. So with that, I'm going to pop into this one. Oops, I'm just going to select that we're going to rate by activity only. And you'll see further down here, we have the activity rate list. So with the activity rate list, these are activities that I've said can be used on the contract module and that defaults were already set up for. If defaults are set, they can still be changed, especially if it's a sliding scale and you're doing your contracts based on clients' income. It'll give you like the default options and then staff can adjust as needed. So I often suggest if you're setting the default, the most commonly selected pay rate for those items. So for this client, I've added anger therapy and assessment. I've said that anger therapy is $50 an hour, and I've said assessment is $100 a session. So I've made a combination of two types of pay scales that we're getting. And with this client in their contact section, I've created a contact where I've used both of those items. So I picked anger therapy for 1 hour and assessment for 3 hours. And again, so we set anger therapy up to be by the hour and assessment by the session. So then When we go up, we can see here specifically what's being charged. So anger therapies, total charge is going to be $20 because we set it at $20 an hour. And then assessment is set to $100 a session. So even though it's set for 3 hours, it's still going to maintain that $100. And then it's going to give us the total for the session based on the activities that we selected. And again, we have all of those same options for all of these. And the last one, there are so many scenarios. So a lot of this I'm going to talk through about the different opportunities that are available. So here we can select our contract source, our main contract source for our program. But further down, we have different additional ways that we can charge by activity. So yes, we can charge by activity overall. Doesn't matter who uses this activity. It's always $20 an hour. It's always $100 a session across the board, no matter who is delivering the service. But different organizations might have to get a little bit more granular, and it might cost $50 an hour to have service with me for a certain activity. But with Jamal, he offers that same service for $40 an hour. So you can also add rate by activity, but also rate by the worker and the activity that they're performing. So here I've set up worker activity rates. So this is my worker. These are their different activities. This is how they're being charged. This is how much they are per hour. But then with this one, I also left in all the additional fields. So if they have a wage rate, so this person is $50 an hour plus a premium of $2 an hour. And if there's a fee for that service based on a certain percentage, how much those will come out to overall at the end. And then we also have expenses. Before I pop over to the contact, I just want to talk about some of these. So we have worker expense rates as well. So maybe it's worked into this worker's contract that they get, $15 a day per meals, or whatever that works out to for their gas and their mileage. Could be based on seniority or their contracts, or if you're dealing with different service providers coming into your organization. So expenses can also be done at a worker level, and expenses can also be input just at a general level. So same methodology with the activities and the expenses. And then the one piece that we didn't talk about, but it came back from that one question early on, is the service provider and payee activity rates. So if we're receiving services from an outside source and they're coming in to provide this specific service for our client, we can have them in our agency address book, and we can also choose to rate them by activity. So every time that this individual from the EMHware organization comes in and provides cognitive behavior therapy, this is how much it's going to cost per hour per dollars. So you can have it based on your staff, but also those outside folks who are coming in to assist with our services as well. And they can have their own set of expense rates. So for this client, I just set it up with the worker activity pay rate. And so here they performed anger therapy for $1 or for 1 hour. And again, they had in their contract, they were $50 an hour plus the $2 fee, plus the percentage to have them come in for their fee for service, which comes out to a net total of $69.23 per hour per session. And that's going to pull into here as well. One thing I don't have set up because I don't have it linked to anything is that we also have done integrations in the past with the contract module linking into an accounting software. So essentially the authenticated contact records from EMHware, how they're completed and marked as done, they would leave EMHware and they would go to a bridge essentially. So they don't go straight into the accounting software, but they go to like this middle ground area. And then the accounting software comes over, grabs it and brings it back into theirs. So this can be used so that way, you can use it to help pay your staff. It can even calculate stat holidays and all of those pieces in there to kind of ease that transition between the two softwares. There's a lot of checks and balances that need to be done to ensure that staff are getting their data input in on time and authenticating their records and getting those pieces to go across. But it's definitely a time saver if that's if you have things that need to be done in that aspect. So I'm going to go into my contract tab here. So some of the things that we have, so we track all the activity. Oh, I should maybe go into one of these other ones. We'll see. So this one doesn't have any activity and expense records, but every time that there's an activity or an expense record, there would be a line item in here for that. And you'd be able to see overall what the activity was, what the expense was what was the fee for service, and all of those dollar points for every activity record that was input into the system. And you've got a number of different things. So if you just want to look at the active contracts or those by a certain activity, and then client transactions. So that was the one that we took a look at with our PAR client. So we could see that there was a charge and a payment. So every time that there's a charge or a payment, those will show up in your client transaction section. Client invoice information. So when we're generating the invoice, this information that you input will automatically populate into the invoice for them. And also when you click into each of the contracts, you get an overall view of that contract, just that piece that's in the program history, separated out. And you have the ability to print client statements. Right now, this client has nothing charged against them, but you can see all their activity costs, other costs associated, how much they've spent, how much is remaining. That's in association with their budgets and their invoices as well. And the invoice piece is a newer piece to the contract module. And all the records can be PDF'd and sent to the client's attachments and shared through the client portal or printed off that way as well.
Got a question from Miguel.
Yeah, so is there a way to import contracts or massive creation? Let's say we start using the contract module. Is there a way to create a default contract to all of the active clients for X program? So built into the system, actually, I'm going to check on one thing to see if we have it as a self-serve option first. I don't think so. We can renew the contracts through here. So at this time, we don't have a loader that's built for it. However, I would definitely not say no, but it would be something that we'd scope out with you. It's not something that's been requested before, but we could treat it, because I'm assuming we could treat it as a data load. So creating a program history for each of the clients and setting the default options for all of the specified clients. There would be costs associated with that as it is data transfer related, but it's definitely a conversation that we'd be happy to have with you. And again, I know that there's so many situations and caveats and little intricacies with different organizations and different programs. And so leading into this demonstration, I was really not sure how I was going to cover every aspect. And then I kind of came to the realization that that's not going to happen. And so just know, if you haven't seen something that looks like it could make sense for your organization, but you still want to explore more, again, just let Jamal know, and we'll be happy to hop on even just a fact-finding discussion to talk through it. And if we do have a solution in place, we can put it together and take you for a walkthrough on a live demo. So that way you can see and ensure that it would meet all of your needs, because that's often step one when it comes to the contract module, is get all the information from you and put it together, because there are so many different pieces that we can plug and play and pull out
Mhm,
to have it adapt for you. It's a very adaptable module.
mhm.
Uh,
And Jennifer came up with another
yeah.
question
Is
there.
there a way to run a report that shows us all outstanding client balances? So I hope the report is on this site. So there's one here called billing information by contacts. Just gonna backdate this one a bit. So here's my columns. Thought this one had the balance. I know I've had a custom one that I created specifically
Would it be
for,
the client build column?
not necessarily, because you're saying that they were like where they billed or not, but so like this one, no charged, but it's also not unique individuals. So I know that
Mm,
we created a custom version of this report for an organization, and it might be on my other demo site, where it will show the client balance on this report. So the agreement was that we want to be able to see all the lines for all their charges, but also know their current balance. So we added a client balance column that, so if this client here, MHQCY 12 to 17, had 4 pieces on here, the client balance column was the same for each of them. I'm just gonna check. I might have to find it and track it down. And then Jen, if you could pop in the chat, I believe you're looking at or already using the contract module. So when I locate that, would you like me to load it on your site for you? Okay, perfect. So Jamal, you just have to, if you could send me a reminder after this, because I'll be jumping
sure.
from one meeting to the next. I'll track down the request and find it, because I have like, I remember having that whole conversation about it. Oh, so we have this one here, custom. Let me see if this one's it. That's definitely not it. Okay, give me 1 second, then I'm going to stop searching for this on the demo and I will get back to you outside of this. Oh, actually, this one might have it. No. Okay. I will grab a couple, and if anybody else, 'cause we do have it, I just have to locate that. It's a pretty standard piece, but I know that we've been modifying and adjusting some as well. But if anybody else is interested in that report who's currently using a contract module, who would need it, just let us know in the chat or let Jamal know, and we'll make sure that we get it over to you as well. I've just got to track it down, and you guys don't need to watch me struggle looking for the one that I want and running them all during the webinar. So I'm going to give it 1 minute, see if there's any more contract questions, and then we'll pass over to Jamal to talk about payments. And then I'll probably be looking for the report while he's screen sharing.
Hey, it's that time of year. We got a lot going on. Every minute counts. Okay, so no questions are coming up, we can kick off with payment processing. And of course, if there are individuals on the call who do come up with questions regarding contracts, just feel free to put them up in the Q&A and we'll get to them eventually. It's
Yep.
all good there. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. One moment. Here we go.
I found it. It took me 2 seconds. I'll get it on your site, Jen.
Can you all hear me okay? Could you hear me before when I said I lost audio?
No.
No. Okay. Things cut out. All good. When I went to presentation mode, things did not go well. That's okay. We can kick it old school and just go slide by slide. Hello, everyone, and thanks a lot for attending our webinar today. I'm going to go through the payment processing portion, and we're calling it PayPro for short for now because it's just really fun to say. So we'll see how long we go along with that. Okay, so for everyone here, my name is Jamal. I'm the manager of account management here at EMHware. I'm sure I've spoken with many of you at this point in time. If not, really happy to be here and really happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding follow-up involving the contract module, as well as with anything regarding PayPro at this time. Okay, so our agenda for this portion is going to be, and apologies, I have a bit of a cold, so I am sounding a little bit more froggy than normal, but we'll power through. So agenda for today, we're going to go through what is payment processing and how does it work with EMHware. We're also going to dig into how to configure PayPro along with the pricing model, talking about how much and the rationale behind it. We're also going to go through the current state and future enhancements planned for PayPro, and then we'll get into Q&A and then closing. Okay, so what is payment processing? Payment processing, or PayPro, enables EMHware partners and users the ability to process payments directly in EMHware. And PayPro will have a dedicated payments tab in your EMHware console. PayPro functionality is in partnership with the good folks over at Stripe who are powering our tech on the back end. And it accepts credit slash debit payment options at this point in time. So, in addition to that, payment processing features white label invoices. And I just want everyone to be mindful that this functionality is just version one of PayPro. This is a new module and a new offering for us at EMHware. So, we're going to be iterating it, updating it, and as well collecting feedback from partners to make it the best that it can be. And we'll talk about future enhancements a little bit later. All right, I want to dig into a little bit of what the white label invoice is going to look like. So if you can just follow along with me with the various numbered arrows. So you're going to have an opportunity to have your agency logo on the invoice, and that'll be in the top right corner as denoted by the number one. And number two, that'll be provider information. So that includes the clinical designation in EMHware and license number. Number three, this is where you can have a little bit of customization by adding in a custom memo, allows you to manually add any other details such as presenting members of family, etc. And then at number four, you have a description. And this is entered when the invoice is generated from EMHware. And just an FYI, receipts are a direct reflection of the invoice. So again, how does it work? Since we are currently still building and testing out this product, we're not going to be able to engage in any live demo magic that Amanda is so great at. So we're just going to have to settle for some screenshots. So this is what it's going to look like. We'll have a payments tab that's located up in a dedicated new top tab. And of course, this is just a screenshot taken from the dev site, so the visuals may change. So how to configure PayPro. You want to reach out to accounts at emhware.com to have PayPro configured on. And once configured, you'll need to onboard to a Stripe account. You can get linked to Stripe directly from EMHware through clicking the onboard button, and that button is found within the payment screen within EMHware. And you want to complete the Stripe onboarding process. And we recommend that you go through this process all in one sitting to make sure that, there's nothing that occurs in regards to sessions timing out or lack of saved data, etc. And once you complete the Stripe onboarding process, you'll be redirected back to EMHware. So we want to mention that, it's imperative for you to be sure to verify that all the information in your Stripe account before creating invoices. And just to be mindful, this onboarding process does only need to be completed once by an agency admin or a financial controller. And we're going to create a tutorial video to help you guide through this process. Uh, so yeah, we got you in terms of helping you get onboarded. So we have one more screenshot here, and this comes back to getting started with Stripe. So this is part of the onboarding process that you get redirected to directly from EMHware. And I just wanted to, again, enunciate even more with a bright red box that if you're completing this form on behalf of an organization or a business, it must be completed either by an owner or someone with significant management responsibility of that business. For our purposes, that's more along the lines of a financial controller or an administrator or senior admin within your organization. Okay, so pricing. So for payment processing, we wanted to talk a little bit about not only how much it's going to cost, but we wanted to explain the pricing model behind it. So EMHWare's payment processing module will be based on usage and transaction amount. So unlike other module offerings that are an annualized SaaS payments that you pay every year, this is going to be a bit different. It's based on the amount of usage, as well as has a base percentage. So pricing is at 3.5%. Um, I should say plus, that shouldn't be equal, plus a 30-second transaction. So the idea here is, let's say you have a service and you charge $100 for it. And of course, this is pre-taxes. The actual service will cost you an additional $3.80. So that's the 350 for the percentage, as well as an additional 30 cents per transaction. So just to be mindful, we chose this pricing model due to the nature of the product, as well as to enable you to easily configure the functionality on and off. We wanted to create an opportunity for EMHware partners to feel comfortable in activating PayPro and to not put you in a situation where you might feel locked in for a long period of time using this service since it is variable based in terms of pricing. I'm going to take a moment there, get a swig of water, as well as ask if there are any questions thus far. Great question, Jen. Are there any implementation fees? So we're not looking at an implementation fee model at this time for PayPro. We're just looking at straight transaction pricing. So very good question. As you know, or as you may know, we do have some modules and offerings that do feature an implementation fee on top of a SaaS offering. For here, we're just going for straight implementation. Or sorry, straight transaction. Okay, Timothy is asked, how much is Stripe? Uh, are you asking about how much Stripe is? Just a little bit of clarification. how much Stripe costs on its own or how much Stripe costs in regards to EMHware? If you can get back to me with some clarification, that'd be great. I'm just gonna Oh, okay. So, yeah, the just to elaborate, the payment processing solution, it's powered by Stripe. So this pricing that you see here is inclusive of using Stripe within EMHware. So again, it's 3.5% per transaction plus an additional, or 3.5% of a transaction amount plus an additional 30 cents per transaction. That factors in the pricing of utilizing Stripe technology as part of this solution. And Jen is asking, when do you anticipate the functionality will be available? I'll get to that in a moment on my final slide. Any other questions? Correct. So just to clarify, Jen, Stripe will not charge additional payment processing fees. Think of this as um, an all-in solution. So you'll be paying us, and then of course we'll be as well paying Stripe on the back end for the cost of utilizing the tech. Any other questions? And that's okay. We can get back to Q&A in a moment too. Uh, Final slide. So just want to talk about current state as well as future state and some enhancement ideas that we have. So current state. Payment processing is currently undergoing beta testing with select partners, and we're looking to have PayPro available in mid-April for wide availability for all of our partners. By then, we'll have step-by-step guides, a video tutorial, and other documentation available by release. We're really looking to make sure that you're armed with all the information that you need right from the hop to see whether or not payment processing is right for your organization. And of course, we'll still be able to answer any questions or concerns that you may have on the account management side of things. So we have some future states and some enhancement ideas that we're exploring right now. So we're looking at invoice attachments, split tender payments, recurring payments, card on file workflows, as well as point of sale collection workflows. This isn't a complete list of enhancement ideas that we have for payment processing, but these are just a few and we wanted to let you all know that we are already thinking about and examining how we can increase uh, this functionality, make it a bit more robust, as well as just, signaling to all of you and signaling to the market that we're in it for the long haul and hopefully in it to win it. Timothy, is e-transfer in the plans? This is a great question. So right now we are looking at a credit/debit payments. When it comes to e-transfer, this is something that we are actively looking at, and we are looking to expand being able to accept different types of payment options in the future. Again, this is V1. Uh, and with that, we will be iterating on the core module and to make it better over time. Jen's asking, will the initial launch integrate with the contracts module? Great question. I was wondering whether or not this one was going to come up. So, in terms of full integration between contracts and PayPro, to my knowledge, there won't be full integration at the beginning, but there will be some level of interplay between contracts and payments. We're still determining how far we are going to go with integrating PayPro into contracts as it's established right now. And Amanda, if you have anything to add there, let me know or let us know.
So I haven't been involved in the development of this, but the first iteration, yes. So I would say if it works how I'm expecting it to work, it should do what you need it to, Jen. But let me play around with it on the development site, and then I can get back to Jamal, who can get back to you to let you know how far it is uh, out of that right now. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Ah,
That
yeah,
at least it would be important to see the client payments applied against the client charge. Basically, you could even pop it open or to go against their balance or some level of that. So um, I will check that out, especially for those of you who came for the contract module and the payments. I'll check it out and see where it is going to be in
mm,
rollout phase one. I'll write something up and then Jamal can send it out to the attendees that came today. So I should, it's a busy week, but I should have it to you like by mid
mm,
next at the latest.
perfect. Yeah, Jen, to your point, great questions. And yeah, thanks for the elaboration and the context there, as well as feature info, Amanda. And this is something that we have been actively thinking about, more about how PayPro will integrate with contracts and all the various levels. So we're on it and looking forward to seeing the magic that Amanda's going to whip up and see
Yeah.
how we can relay that to folks.
And one of the biggest things is it will, in the end, if it doesn't in stage one, it will integrate on some level at the end. And one thing that we've learned over the last few years that's been working really well for us is releasing things in stages and different levels of
Yep.
development, getting in with that initial core product and then taking feedback from organizations and users and implementing those to improve it, rather than us just making an assumption and putting it all together and
Right.
making 3 years for us to build it. So it's helping us get what you need in your hands faster and really make sure that the development is driven by the needs and again, not our assumed needs by you
Yep.
guys. Also, totally side note, Jennifer, I loaded the report for you on your site. It's in the custom section and it's called billing information by contacts. And then at the end, it says with balance because there's two of them. So I changed the name so you could find it easy.
Great. So, wrap up. We've been organically going through a Q&A, which is totally fine. I just wanted to end off at do feel free to reach out to accounts@emhware.com, set up a consultation or business review to discuss, of course, PayPro if we want to further discuss the contract module. We are trying to push this new email address, accounts@emhware.com, to provide a bit of relief to our intrepid support team. As we all know, support at emhware.ca gets a lot of traffic, so we're just trying to, provide a bit of relief there. So if you could use this new email address, it'd be mucho appreciated. And of course, we're open for additional questions if anyone has any, not only regarding PayPro, but if someone has come up with any questions regarding contracts or, if you will, any questions for contracts since you've gone through the payment processing portion, we're all ears. Okay, no questions, and I'm seeing some participants file off. I imagine maybe to get a little bit caffeinated to get through the PM. At least I know that's what I'm definitely going through. We're going to go through. Okay, with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you so much for your time today, Amanda. As per usual, thanks so much for your time presenting the contract module. And do feel free to reach out at accounts@emhware.com. Regarding future scheduling for our March Madness Lunch and Learn webinars, this will be the final webinar that will be presented towards the wide partner base. So thank you so much for joining us for all these incredible sessions over the last few weeks. They've been really fun to put on, and it's been great engaging in all the Q&As and all the follow-up conversations that we've had from them.